With the Dodd-Frank trade reconstruction language coming to fruition and the deadline looming soon for compliance, I'm joined today by Steve Haworth, CEO of TeleWare, to talk about what folks need to think about when they're looking at trade reconstruction. Steve, thanks for joining us here on Tabb Forum.
It's a pleasure.
Steve, with compliance looming, what do folks in the marketplace have to think about when they're talking about trade reconstruction and voice capture?
Well, first, to enable trade reconstruction, obviously you've got to capture everything, and voice is an important component of that. And the Dodd-Frank regulation for capturing voice on mobile devices is coming into effect on the 21st of December. So people really have to make sure they are capturing this information as soon as possible to enable any kind of reconstruction going forward.
How are institutions that really rely on BYOD supposed to manage voice capture on mobile devices when everyone has their own device that they bring into the workplace?
Yeah, we're seeing a big migration towards BYOD or other devices, device types within the industry. And what we see in the UK, we've spent a couple of years doing this there, is to enable compliance on any device rather than device specific and give that freedom of choice to the end user is extremely important. Flexibility is key in this market.
We see right now with the voice capture, the data capture is one element, but the truth of the matter is it's not just about data capture, it's about trade reconstruction. What is it that folks got to think about when they're looking at trade reconstruction in the mobile voice recording area?
Exactly. I mean, the reconstruction in itself is one thing, but also the magic is in the data, regardless whether it's reconstruction or using it for value going forward. I think if you're going to reconstruct data of any kind, then you've got to make sure it's of good quality and it's tagged enough so that you can actually find what you're looking for. So and that doesn't matter whether that's voice, email, text, you really need to get it at its source as good as possible, and you need the information to be able to search on that data later.
Well, it's our understanding that the tagging aspect of this is really challenging. I think that the compliance regulators in Washington and the prudential regulators, all of these folks have granted a number of exemptions or extensions based on this issue of tagging. Are there analytics out there? Are there actual solutions to the tagging issue? Or is it just a manpower issue and porting everything out and having thousands of people look at it?
Yeah, there are technologies there, but there's also, if you think of voice in general, then that's been tagged with various different, what they call metadata anyway. So who called, where they called to, etc. Where it starts to get a little bit more juicy is really in what was that conversation about, what trade was it relating to, what happened and was discussed within that trade. And I think that's the piece where technology is getting there, but it's still getting there rather than is there today.
Are people in the industry, are they moving more towards sort of a software solution with regards to mobile voice recording? Are they looking at a hardware solution or a mixture of both with analytics?
Well, really, what they're looking for is something that's as simple as possible, and the user experience doesn't change. That tends to mean in network solutions for the actual capture of the voice. But then when it comes to the analytics side, they tend to want to get that data all captured together and then do the analytics across not just one element of the trade, they want it all together and do that analytics across the whole piece.
To me, that would make sense for folks, especially along the lines with, I guess, the historically large provider in this field has been sort of BlackBerry with their BES solution. Everything is in one device, but we're starting to see the sort of institutions migrate away from BES because of BlackBerry's sort of, future of that. Where is this market going to go? How are they going to be able to do that given there's so many different providers out there?
I think whatever solution people go for, they need to make sure it's open. Choice is hugely important to us as a consumer, to people in work as well. And I think if you're looking at any solution, then make sure that you can accommodate any device type, because the truth of the matter is we've all got opinions on where this market's going, but no one really knows because it changes so fast. So to lock yourself into any one single vendor is almost you're trying to second guess a market that no one really can.
That's changing almost on a daily or annual basis.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, certain companies didn't exist. Now other companies are taking over. There's still choice, and they're still waiting for who's going to take over that enterprise space, because there's definitely a migration to something, but what that something is, no one's quite sure.
And in the UK, you've seen most folks move more with, I guess, sort of the SIM based solutions as opposed to software-based solutions, and that's where I think most of the experience is coming from, correct?
Correct, yes. A lot of people chose software solutions very early doors. The issues they had was really around user experience, delays in making the call, etc. And from a compliance perspective, it could be, you could get around it. You didn't have to necessarily go through that way. With a SIM-based solution, everything happens in the network. Once you've got the device in that state, then it's always going to be compliant. And I think it's important you've got to be 100% compliant, not just a bit compliant. So it's whether that's landline, whether it's mobile, whether it's email, whether it's instant messaging. There's no point being half compliant. You need to be totally compliant.
So we've had a few conversations about this with institutions, and one of the areas that folks have said is, oh, we're just going to make a policy that says you can't use your mobile device. Is that a realistic solution given where we stand today and where we're going tomorrow?
I don't think so, and I don't even think those institutions think that's a long-term plan. If you look at enterprise in general, then things are getting more and more mobile. There's 80% of people work away from their desk more than half of their day. So enterprises are becoming more mobile, and financial services will as well. The point of being, once you are mobile, to not be productive and not to be contactable by customers and not to be able to do your job just seems it isn't the way to become competitive in the marketplace. Financial services are becoming more and more competitive, as we know. So to take away one of the most important tools to add productivity just doesn't seem a long-term solution. And I don't think credibly anybody really believes that will be.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us here on Tabb Forum. I think we're going to hear more and more about trade reconstruction, mobile voice recording, and probably voice analytics as well.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.